Arc Raiders just dropped 30% of its player base. 30%. That is not a dip. That is not a normal fluctuation for Arc Raiders. That is a serious momentum hit. And here's the bigger question. Is the hype starting to fade for Arc Raiders? Because when a live service shooter loses that many players at this point, it sends a message. And guess who's watching? Bungie. Marathon is right around the corner. And actually, they go to server testing on the 26th. And if Arc Raiders start slipping, this might be the exact window that Bungie needs to step in and take over the distraction shooter space. So, is this the beginning of Arc Raiders' decline or the start of a competitive takeover?
Are you not entertained?
All right, so let's break this down. A 30% player drop doesn't automatically mean the game is dying. I want to repeat that. Doesn't mean the game is dying, but the timing matters. Arc Raiders had a strong buzz, strong early engagement, a loyal community forming. But when numbers fall so suddenly, it usually points to one of three things. 1. Content pacing. 2. Balance frustration. 3. Are players waiting for something better to come? And that something better could be Marathon, honestly. Bungie knows how to build long-term engagement loops. They understand seasonal retention. They understand PvP pressure systems. If Arc Raiders can't stabilize its player base before Marathon ramps up marketing, the distraction shooter audience could fragment fast. And here's the real danger. In live service game, perception becomes reality. If players start believing Arc Raiders is slipping, that narrative alone can accelerate the decline. So the real question isn't just about a 30% drop. It's this. Can Arc Raiders rebound before Marathon makes its move? Because the next few months could decide who actually owns the genre. All right, so I know it was kind of dramatic in the intro, but I want to say this point because I do still play Arc Raiders. There has been so much complaint about rats and just people begging for P versus E environments only, and they had the little thing where it encouraged you to, do arc damage and all that, but you still got P versus P elements even in that. And there's been a lot of complaints about that. And don't get me wrong, for every complaint, there's a fucking counter saying this is what the fuck an distraction shooter is. All right. Don't play the game if you don't want to deal with PvP. But honestly, I've seen a lot of comments too saying it's just the amount of P versus P issues and how it affects their enjoyment of the game is a lot. And a lot of people say once you max out like skill points and you got all the blueprints, there's really nothing else to do but to kill other players. Like there's nothing interesting to keep you engaged with just fighting the arc. You really only are left with fucking up other people's day in the game. And that's very unfortunate, but I have seen a lot of that comment in the Arc Raiders pages and groups and discourse that I follow. That is very much a real thing. And Marathon, don't get me wrong, I have no interest in Marathon as somebody that plays Arc Raiders. I already told my cousin, who was very surprised when I said that, I only have enough time for one live service game. I cannot add another one. Marathon could be the best thing smoking. I'm just not going to take that on, and I'm not going to pay $40 for another live service game, which it was already a miracle that I paid $40 for Arc Raiders. And the only reason why I did that is because we got so much feedback, how fun it was. And don't get me wrong, the game is very fun, but I can understand people who ain't got nothing left to do, and they already did the trials, and they've done the prestige mode, and it's just like, there's nothing to keep their interest. So I can understand the dip, 30%, but don't get me wrong. Arc Raiders player count has been very consistently high. Like we've documented well how much their player count has remained high, even in the wake of Battlefield 6, who had a very smoking good start and ended where they now are struggling to keep interest, even with new updates. So yeah, I get it. I kind of get it on both sides, but at the end of the day, this is an distraction shooter. And will Marathon improve on the elements that are frustrating players that play Arc Raiders right now? I don't know, because at the end of the day, it's still an distraction shooter, so they still gonna have share some type of similarities. But it's all about, can you build upon other people's failures? That's the name of the game in gaming industry in 2026. Building on other people's failures and giving the player something that interests them for a period of time. So, but I gotta be honest, live service games, they struggle keeping people interested for 12 months. I keep saying these in these ARC videos videos. My cousin kind of hit the nail on the head when we was discussing the success of Arc Raiders at its earlier stages. He was like, hey, let's see if this game is still going to be relevant in 12 months. That is a very hard task for live service games to do. And he was very, very right. And I'm not saying they can't rebound. They got some stuff in the pipeline. So this could be just a temporary thing. It was, Valentine's Day. I remember looking on somebody in the group. They was like, yeah, dumbass, we ain't gonna be playing because we got we got real shit to do and wives and girlfriends who demand our time over the weekend. So, we'll see. But we'll see. You got anything to add on this Arc Raiders dip could this be a opportunity for Marathon?
My 2 cents on the matter. 30% is not a huge dip, but I have stated before, Arc Raiders has not a long road ahead of itself, but it needs to prove its longevity. My cousin is very heavily invested in this game. The 30% drop off, I'm not shocked. Live service online games like this, they roller coaster up and down, up and down. Their audience needs to be satiated. Content drops, engagement, constant something for them to do. And we talked about how they have a roadmap coming up, but Marathon is now ramping up to launch. You have some players who probably want to, see what the other cafeteria sandwich is doing, see what's going around. In a sense, because Bungie has what I think Embark, the Arc Raiders developer, they have something that they don't. They have name recognition. They have a history behind them, even though it's kind of a fucked up history now with Destiny. But they are the originator of Halo. They do make good first-person shooter games, and for those first-person shooter people, they just eat up anything with just hands and a gun in front of them. But as I said before, Arc Raiders, we'll see the success of it around the 1 year mark. A lot of these games don't intend to not last long. Arc Raiders has held on this long, even with the player base complaining about the PvE aspect thing. But 30% is not a bad drop. I am interested to see what do they do to keep the player base even when Marathon hits the market. But I don't believe they should have anything to worry about because their numbers are still good.
Yeah.
They're better than Concord numbers. They're better than that High Guard numbers. So clearly they're doing something that the people want and enjoy. But I would say the real testament of how they're doing, let's see how they handle the summer market with kids out of school and all that free time going
that's
up.
a good point.
Let's see how they handle that. That is a real, how do you sustain a player base that has nothing to do for majority of the day besides, hang out around the house. I don't think they do the Mountain Dew and Doritos anymore. That era is kind of bygone now. It's probably like Chipotle and green tea or whatever the case is. But we'll keep our eye on it. But I won't lie, I will try the beta of Marathon just to see and get a feel because I drank the Kool-Aid. I fell for the Destiny hype and everything. And I can say wholeheartedly, the people at Bungie, there we go. God, couldn't get their name out. People at Bungie, one thing they do know how to do, they do know how to make a shooter that feels tight and good in the hands. I already know what you're going to say, but Infamous, you don't like. Yes. Me and my cousin, we don't like first-person shooters. I think it's lazy development. I still have to see just how they how they try to handle it. A beta is free. And here, are you not entertained? We are all about $3.99. But let's go ahead and see how it plays out, though.
Yeah. I do want to ask you one thing before we move on, because you even stated too that it's hard to keep people engaged for 12 months, and Battlefield, as we'll get in later, is struggling, and they just launched, I think, within 6 months. When we take into account how much these games cost, even for a live service game, the continuation and the maintenance and the amount of things, the time span they need to drop, is it really realistic to try to make a live service game in 2026 and going forward? Because how much it takes to keep people engaged. Like, I just don't understand anybody in 2026, i.e. iGuard, why would you want to make a live service game? Because it's just so hard to keep people engaged for 12 months.
I can answer that. So their expectations, one, are realistic. Are unrealistic when they're making these games. This is not 2008. This isn't 2012. Time is a currency you cannot get back once you spend it. And it's no longer these teenagers that are sustaining these games like that. I mean, they are to an extent, but those are mainly the people playing the Fortnite, Minecraft, the free-to-play S games, and then spend money here, spend money there.
Mhm.
When you make these games now, even though High Guard was free, a free to play game, it entered in such a saturated market that everyone has
Yeah.
already invested their time into these games. That's why I always say you will never usurp the
Yeah.
person that's put 4,000 hours into that, all those skins, and they said they're not leaving, even if another game has promise and looks good. There too much time has gone into it. As I was saying with the crowd that holds these games up, it's us. It's millennials. It's the people that's in their 30s to 40s that has the money to buy the game, 9 times out of 10, if not for themselves, for their kid who has the time to play it. One group of audience has the money to buy, another one has just the time to play it. And when you're looking at a 15-year-old who has nothing to do on a Wednesday or a Friday night but be in the house and, oh, I want to play this. And you took you 6 months to do a content drop and they run through it in a weekend and be like, all right, what else you got? You have to keep feeding that machine. You have to keep satiating them to keep coming back. And this is the problem that Destiny was running into when they did their content drops. What took you some months to develop and go through, player base ripped through it in a matter of days. It was like, all right, what else you got?
Yeah. The bored
And
get bored. Yeah.
yeah, and then now you get bored when there are so many other things on the market. You try to constantly keep feeding that beast. It won't happen. You end up either needing to fully dedicate yourself to it, or you'll have to figure out a different type of engagement model.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's just I don't people like you said get bored so quickly. The amount of content that they need at launch and then the continuing content they need periodically, I don't know, like every month and a half to 2 months to 3 months, like it's very hard for a studio which probably is not manned correctly to keep up with that pace. And yeah, obviously whoever worked on High Guard was very, very, very unrealistic in the amount of content needed at launch. And if live service game does not launch correctly, it's fucked. Even if it launched correctly, like Battlefield 6, it's no guarantee you're gonna maintain the numbers. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll definitely follow Arc Raiders and keep you updated. But let us know in the comments down below. Are you one of the people that are kind of tired of Arc Raiders? You've already burned through everything. You feel like there's nothing left to do but to PvP, and people are tired of getting PvP'd, and so they walking away. So let us know how you fall in that gauge of players, and if you're looking forward for Marathon to potentially give you something better and see if it's greener on the other side. Let us know in the comments down below.
Absolutely. And that's it for this video of Are You Not Entertained podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell so you'll never miss our next hot take. Until next time, Are You Not Entertained?